Guess what? Where on earth did human beings first invent writing? Where did they first develop mathematics, astronomy, and codified law? Where did the earliest cities rise, complete with temples, markets, courts, and schools? In ancient Egypt along the Nile, in the Indus Valley of Pakistan and India. Perhaps in China, along the Yellow River? No, all wrong. The birthplace of human civilization, the land where virtually every foundation of modern society was first established, lies in a country that the modern world associates primarily with war, destruction, and suffering. That country is Iraq, and that is merely the beginning of what this wounded cradle holds. When most people think of Iraq today, they see images of conflict. Explosions lighting up night skies over Baghdad, ancient cities reduced to rubble by airstrikes and occupation, museums looted, monuments destroyed, and a population scattered across the globe as refugees. But Iraq is not merely a battlefield. It is the place where humanity first became civilized. Here, in the fertile land between two rivers, people first planted crops systematically, freeing themselves from constant hunting and gathering. Here, they built the first cities, invented the first writing system, composed the first literature, and enacted the first written laws. The Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's oldest known story, was written here. The Code of Hammurabi, history's first comprehensive legal code, was carved here. The mathematical systems that underlie modern science originated here. The astronomical observations that eventually led to the scientific revolution began here. This is the story of where civilization was born, and where, in our own time, it nearly died. A journey through a land where every mound of earth may conceal a city older than the pyramids, and where the resilience of human culture faces its most severe test. Welcome to Travel Vibes. The land now called Iraq occupies the territory that ancient Greeks named Mesopotamia, meaning the land between the rivers. Those rivers are the Tigris and the Euphrates, two great waterways that originate in the mountains of eastern Turkey and flow southeastward through Syria and Iraq before emptying into the Persian Gulf. The fertile plain created by their annual floods became the foundation for humanity's first experiments in large-scale agriculture. Approximately 10,000 years ago, communities in this region began the transition from nomadic hunting and gathering to settled agriculture. They domesticated wheat, barley, sheep, goats, pigs, and cattle. They built permanent villages, then towns, then the world's first cities. By approximately 3500 BCE, the Sumerians had developed a civilization of remarkable sophistication in southern Mesopotamia. They created cuneiform writing, pressing wedge-shaped marks into clay tablets to record transactions, stories, prayers, and laws. They built ziggurats, massive stepped temples that connected earth to the heavens. They developed mathematics based on the number 60, a system that survives today in our 60-minute hours and 360-degree circles. The Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and later empires built upon Sumerian foundations, each contributed innovations that shaped human development. The library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, containing tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets, represented humanity's first systematic attempt to collect and preserve knowledge. When people speak of the cradle of civilization, they are speaking of Iraq, not metaphorically, but literally. The concepts, technologies, and institutions that define civilized life were invented here. In this narrow strip of fertility surrounded by desert, mountains, and sea, Iraq's significance extends far beyond ancient history. This land occupies sacred ground and multiple religious traditions that shape the modern world. For Jews and Christians, Iraq contains sites of profound importance. The city of Ur in southern Iraq is identified in the book of Genesis as the birthplace of Abraham, the patriarch from whom both traditions claim descent. The rivers of Eden described in Genesis are often identified with the Tigris and Euphrates. The Tower of Babel, symbol of human ambition and divine judgment, is associated with the ziggurats of ancient Babylon. During the Babylonian exile of the 6th century BCE, Jewish captives developed religious practices and compiled texts that became foundational to Judaism. The Babylonian Talmud, completed in Iraq around 500 CE, remains one of the most important texts in Jewish religious law. For Muslims, Iraq holds particular significance for Shia Islam. The cities of Najaf and Karbala contain shrines that draw millions of pilgrims annually. Najaf houses the tomb of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth caliph and first imam of Shia Islam, cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. Karbala marks the site where Ali's son Hussein was martyred in 680 CE, an event that defines Shia identity and is commemorated annually during Ashura. For Christians, Iraq was home to some of the earliest and most enduring Christian communities. The Chaldean Catholic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East trace their origins to apostolic times. Before recent conflicts, Iraq's Christian population numbered over 1 million. With communities speaking Aramaic dialects related to the language of Jesus, this religious layering, ancient Near Eastern, Jewish, Christian, and Islamic, makes Iraq one of the most spiritually significant territories on earth. Every major Abrahamic tradition has roots in this soil. Baghdad, the capital and largest city of Iraq, embodies both the glories and tragedies of this nation's history. Founded in 762 CE by the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur, Baghdad was designed from the beginning as an imperial capital. Its original circular plan, known as the Round City, placed the caliph's palace and the main mosque at the center, with residential and commercial districts radiating outward in carefully planned rings. Within a century, Baghdad had become the largest city in the world outside China, with a population that may have exceeded 1 million. The House of Wisdom, established by Caliph Ulman in the 9th century, gathered scholars from across the known world to translate Greek, Persian, Indian, and other texts into Arabic. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy flourished. The Islamic Golden Age, when Baghdad stood at the center of human knowledge, produced achievements that shaped global civilization. Algebra, derived from the Arabic aljabra, was systematized here. The works of Aristotle were preserved and transmitted to Europe through Arabic translations made in Baghdad. Algorithms, the basis of modern computing, take their name from the Baghdad mathematician El. The Mesopotamian marshes, known in Arabic as the Awar, once comprised one of the world's largest wetland ecosystems. These vast reed beds, open water areas, and islands supported a distinctive way of life practiced by the Marsh Arabs, or MDN, for at least 5,000 years. The Medan lived in red houses built on artificial islands, traveled by boat, raised water buffalo, and maintained traditions that connected them directly to ancient Sumerian culture. Their way of life represented one of the longest continuous cultural traditions anywhere on Earth. In the 1990s, the Saddam Hussein regime deliberately drained the marshes as punishment for rebellion and to facilitate military operations. What had been over 9,000 square kilometers of wetland was reduced to less than 800. The ecosystem collapsed. The MDAN population scattered. Since 2003, reflooding efforts have restored significant portions of the marshes. Wildlife has returned. Some Memdan communities have re-established traditional practices. UNESCO designated the Awar as a World Heritage Site in 2016, recognizing both the natural values of the restored wetlands and the cultural traditions they support. The marshes today exist in uncertain balance. Water flow depends on decisions made upstream in Turkey and Syria. Climate change threatens the hydrological systems that sustain the ecosystem. The revival remains fragile, yet the restoration represents one of the largest ecosystem recovery efforts ever undertaken. Birds that had vanished have returned. Fish populations have recovered. The possibility of maintaining connections to 5,000-year-old traditions persists, however precariously. The holy cities of Najaf and Karbala draw millions of Shia Muslim pilgrims annually. Their shrines among the most sacred sites in Islam. Najaf's Imam Ali Mosque contains the tomb of Ali ibn Abi Talib, whom Shia Muslims regard as the rightful successor to the Prophet Muhammad and the first of their 12 imams. The golden dome and minarets rising above the city create a skyline recognized throughout the Muslim world. The cemetery of Wadi al-Salam, adjacent to the shrine, is believed to be the largest cemetery in the world, containing millions of graves accumulated over 1,400 years. Shia Muslims have sought burial near Ali's tomb, believing that proximity to the Imam provides spiritual benefit. Karbala shrines commemorate the martyrdom of Hussein, Ali's son, killed with his followers by forces of the Umayyad Caliph Yazid, in 680 CE. This event, remembered during the annual Ashura observances, defines Shia identity and spirituality. The Arbaeen pilgrimage, commemorating the 40th day after Hussein's death, has become one of the largest annual gatherings of people anywhere in the world. Tens of millions of pilgrims walk to Karbala from across Iraq and beyond, housed and fed by volunteer stations along the routes. These religious sites have survived invasions, wars, and sectarian violence. They represent not only architectural and artistic achievements, but living traditions that continue to shape millions of lives. Samarra, north of Baghdad, contains one of the most distinctive structures in all of Islamic architecture. The Great Mosque of Samarra, built in the 9th century when Samarra served briefly as the Abbasid capital, featured a spiral minaret unlike any other. This structure, known as the Malwiya, rises approximately 52 meters in a helical cone, its ramp winding counterclockwise toward the sky. The mosque itself, though ruined, was once among the largest in the world. Its outer walls enclosed an area of approximately 17 hectares. The Malwiya, standing apart from the main structure, served as both minaret and symbol of Abbasid power. UNESCO designated the Samarra Archaeological City a World Heritage Site in 2007. The site suffered damage during the recent conflict, but the Malwiya itself survived, its distinctive silhouette still rising above the Tigris Valley. Babylon was the greatest city of the ancient Near East, capital of empires that dominated the region for centuries. Under Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BCE, the city reached its zenith. The Ishtar Gate, decorated with brilliant blue glazed bricks and images of dragons and bulls, welcomed visitors along the processional way. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed as ancient sources describe, ranked among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The original Ishtar Gate now resides in Berlin's Pergamon Museum. a reminder of how Iraq's heritage has been dispersed across the globe, but reconstructed portions stand at the site, offering hints of original splendor. UNESCO designated Babylon a World Heritage Site in 2019, recognizing its outstanding universal value despite the damage inflicted by decades of conflict and ill-conceived reconstruction efforts during the Saddam Hussein era. The site remains a work in progress, with archaeologists and conservators working to stabilize and protect what survives. Further south, the Ziggurat of Ur rises from the desert, one of the best-preserved structures from ancient Mesopotamia, built approximately 4,100 years ago during the reign of King Ur-Nammu. This massive stepped temple once served as the ceremonial center of one of the world's first cities. Ur was already ancient when Abraham, according to biblical tradition, departed from it to journey to Canaan. Archaeological excavations revealed royal tombs containing treasures of gold, lapis lazuli, and carnelian, demonstrating the wealth and artistic sophistication of Sumerian civilization. The ziggurat stands today, much as it did for millennia ago, its core of mud brick still intact. Its partially reconstructed facade giving visitors a sense of the monument's original imposing presence. Few structures anywhere on Earth can match its age and state of preservation. In northern Iraq, the ruins of Assyrian capitals preserve evidence of an empire that once dominated the ancient world. Nineveh, near modern Mosul, served as the capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire at its height. The palace of Sennacherib contained over 70 rooms decorated with carved stone reliefs depicting military campaigns, hunting scenes, and royal ceremonies. The library of Ashurbanipal mentioned earlier represented an unprecedented attempt to gather all human knowledge in a single location. The site suffered severe damage during the recent conflict with ISIS, which deliberately destroyed ancient artifacts as part of its campaign against what it considered idolatry. The Nergal Gate, with its winged bull sculptures, was demolished. Sculptures that had survived 2,700 years were smashed in acts of cultural destruction broadcast worldwide. Yet much survives, both at the site and in museum collections assembled during 19th and 20th century excavations. The British Museum holds extensive collections of Assyrian reliefs and tablets from Nineveh, these displaced treasures. However, one views their removal, preserved objects that would otherwise have been destroyed. Hatra, in the desert west of Mosul, presents a different aspect of Iraqi heritage. This ancient city flourished as a trading center and religious sanctuary during the Parthian period, approximately 2,000 years ago. Its temples combined Greek, Roman, and Eastern architectural elements, reflecting the cultural crossroads that Iraq has always been. UNESCO designated Hatra a World Heritage Site in 1985. It too suffered damage during recent conflicts, but remains substantially intact. The massive arched structures, built without mortar, demonstrate engineering achievements that continue to impress modern observers. The Erbil Citadel, in the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, claims to be one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in the world. Archaeological evidence suggests occupation spanning at least 6,000 years. The mound upon which the citadel sits accumulated through millennia of human habitation, each generation building upon the compressed remains of those who came before. UNESCO inscribed the Erbil Citadel as a World Heritage Site in 2014, recognizing both its archaeological significance and its living cultural traditions. Unlike many ancient sites, Erbil remains a functioning urban center, its ancient core surrounded by a modern city that continues to grow. In the far south of Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates approach the Persian Gulf, a unique ecosystem preserves both natural and cultural heritage. The Arch of Ctesiphon, south of Baghdad, represents a different architectural tradition. This massive brick vault, spanning approximately 25 meters, is the largest single-span vault of unreinforced brickwork in the world. It formed part of the palace of the Sasanian Persian emperors, who ruled Iraq before the Islamic conquest. The arch has survived for approximately 1,700 years, outlasting the empire that built it, the Arab conquest that ended that empire, the Mongol invasion that devastated the region, and the modern conflicts that threaten so much heritage. Standing before this structure, visitors confront the resilience of human achievement across time. Empires rise and fall. Wars devastate populations. Yet the arch remains, testimony to what human skill could accomplish even without modern technology. Iraq's cultural heritage has faced threats in recent decades that nearly succeeded in erasing millennia of human achievement. The 2003 invasion and subsequent instability led to the looting of the National Museum of Iraq, with thousands of artifacts disappearing into the international antiquities market. Though many pieces have since been recovered, others remain lost. The rise of ISIS brought deliberate destruction on an unprecedented scale. Ancient Assyrian sculptures were sledgehammered, archaeological sites were bulldozed. The minaret of the Great Mosque of Al-Nuri in Mosul, standing since the 12th century, was demolished. These losses cannot be undone. What survived 3,000 years did not survive the chaos of our own time. Yet the story does not end with destruction. Iraqi archaeologists, museum professionals, and ordinary citizens risked their lives to protect heritage. Objects were hidden, sites were monitored, knowledge was preserved even when physical artifacts could not be. International efforts have supported recovery and restoration. Looted objects have been traced and returned. Digital documentation preserves records of what was destroyed. Training programs prepare the next generation of Iraqi heritage professionals. The National Museum has reopened. Visitors can again view the treasures of Mesopotamian civilization, from the earliest Sumerian artifacts to Islamic manuscripts. The collection, though diminished, remains one of the most important in the world. On the plains where writing was invented, where the first laws were codified, where the first cities rose from agricultural villages, the work of civilization continues. Iraq is not merely an archaeological site. It is a living nation of 40 million people, their lives shaped by the same rivers that nourished the Sumerians, the same sun that illuminated Babylon, the same sky that Mesopotamian astronomers studied 5 millennia ago. The wounds are real. Hundreds of thousands have died in conflicts since 1980. Millions have fled as refugees. Infrastructure remains damaged. Institutions struggle to recover. The challenges ahead are immense. But Iraq has faced destruction before. The Mongol sack of Baghdad seemed, to contemporaries, like the end of civilization itself. The river ran black with ink from destroyed books. The irrigation systems that sustained agriculture were wrecked. Population collapsed, yet Baghdad was rebuilt. Scholarship resumed, life continued. The capacity for recovery exists within the Iraqi people themselves. The traditions preserved across 5 millennia did not survive through luck alone. They survived because generation after generation chose to maintain, transmit, and build upon what their ancestors created. What happens next remains unwritten. Whether Iraq can achieve the stability and security necessary for full recovery of its heritage remains uncertain. Whether the next generation will have the opportunity to study, protect, and share their ancestors' achievements depends on decisions yet to be made. But the heritage itself endures. The ziggurat of Ur still rises from the desert. The Arch of Ctesiphon still spans its impossible distance. The Maluya still spirals toward heaven. The shrines of Najaf and Karbala still draw millions who find meaning in traditions that began in this land. Where human civilization was born, it nearly died. But the story is not over. The same soil that produced writing, law, literature, and science continues to support human communities. The same rivers that enabled the first cities continue to flow toward the Gulf. Iraq endures. Wounded, changed, uncertain, but present. The cradle of civilization still holds life within it. Thank you for joining us throughout today's journey on Travel Vibes. The land between the rivers remains. The heritage persists. In the future, as always, awaits its makers.